Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge?
Here.
Trustee Ruzick?
Here.
Is there a motion for the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Harris Enterprise Resource Planning?
Appreciate. Go ahead, Frank. I want to give you as much mic time as you need. It's a celebration.
I don't know if it's a celebration, but so this is the annual renewal for Harris Enterprise. They did give us a slight increase, but as you know, as we implement the human capital management system this year and community development system, that'll be taken off the PO because we won't be paying for services we don't need, right? So for this year, we're going to. I would like to seek approval for this year to be able to go in with the full amount, knowing that it'll be less than that come out the end of the year. So.
Gotcha.
Trustee Dodge? I move to recommend to the village board approval of the Harris ERP annual software maintenance at a cost not to exceed $62,650.93.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Granicus multi-year contract extension for Legistar?
So, Mr. Chairman, this is for our 3-year renewal for Granicus. We went with a 3-year renewal opportunity so that we can receive a 5% discount in the annual renewal year after year. Now that we're brought on Granicus online, media packets, agendas are all available online. Minutes will be available online. Audio recordings will be available online within the next couple.
Through Granicus.
Through Granicus, next couple of months, and then video when we decide we want to go with video. So everything will be streaming online live, as well as time-stamped and available 24/7. So.
Yep, per our discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Questions, comments?
What's the cost to go video with them as opposed to us doing it?
So we've already paid for the server that's sitting in our data center today. So it'd be implementing the cameras and putting in what's called a digital soundboard, mixing board that'll allow us to be able to change camera angles, zoom. So probably another $8,000 to $10,000 with cabling, equipment, cameras, things of that nature.
And personnel costs?
Well, personnel costs, we would have to have someone running that at every meeting. So we determine if that could be a student possibly that's looking for volunteer hours, or if we decide we want to have a part-timer come in and run.
Okay, because I still get complaints that the audio with the Facebook Live is not good.
Yeah, we're using a little boom mic on somebody's phone.
Yeah, so I think sooner rather than later on that.
Agree.
It'll tie into our recording system today, so it'll be just as if we're talking today.
I can show you a video of Logan playing his electric guitar.
So, I mean, are you guys,
I agree.
do you agree we should
Yeah.
find
Press
the
forward.
$8,000 or $10,000 to make the upgrade now that we've?
Well, we've been talking about it, right?
Yep.
You got most of the gear in place. Now it's the last mile, so to speak. So I don't know. Do you need a consensus from the board, or you and Joe just kind of get that the committee says we should push forward? Do you want to bring it to the board? You want to make it part of this motion? Or we just bring it up as a topic of discussion?
Yeah, just bring it up, and then we'll have the
committee wishes it.
It's Jim's committee, so you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the directive is start pushing forward and then come back maybe to the full board or committee if there's an issue with funding, right?
Well, especially since he's leaving and we don't want to lull or anything in between here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so Joe, what will I think you get the sense of the board.
BIS
Got it.
perspective, we'll be ready to go. So
Okay,
just
cool.
be
Thank
okay
you,
to
Frank,
go ahead,
for
and then we'll get
doing
everything
that.
put together, or they'll get everything put together.
All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton?
move to recommend to the village board approval of the 3-year service agreement with
Granicus.
Whatever, Inc., and extend our contract agreement through January 31st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Whatever.
Upgrade of village network core switching equipment?
Always fun, Frank, but pretty important.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, so what this is, of course, we have legacy hardware out there today, and we want to improve the hardware, not only from an end-of-life perspective, but from a throughput perspective. We do have quite a bit of video now that is being transversed across the network from the cameras we're putting in. We're also going to be putting in more as the year goes on. That being said, the time has come to really utilize that fiber we put in place for resiliency and redundancy. So we'd like to put in the new core equipment. We're going to be replicating in a disaster recovery facility and our business continuity facility, so that if there is an issue with the Village Hall data center, that we can immediately move over to the backup facility and have real-time accessibility to enterprise and anything that we keep in-house. We also have resiliency between Public Works, Police Department, our data center here at Village Hall, as well as our remote data center.
Got it. Now
All
it's,
right. And this gives us 10G, that's, for the people who know what that is, 10 gigabits of throughput with these new switches, as well as now we'll be off of equipment that is basically not being supported.
no, we've made a hell of a lot of progress, Frank. A lot of it was you driving, so thank you.
Yeah, I'll give a lot of credit to my staff for this one. This initially came in around 200,000 without training and without support. And we pushed on them. We went out and interviewed other vendors besides Cisco for this. Cisco came back and really gave us a huge discount on this, as well as training credits for future training this year, and for platinum support on most of the equipment and services. So my staff did an awesome job of really hammering them on it. And this is a single source vendor for us. They know our environment. The PD is comfortable with them, and we've been using them for quite a bit of time. And I think that shows a lot that they wanted to keep our business and they worked for it.
All right, so when this goes to the board, for some reason I just sense somebody might ask why we did no bid. Let's just update the file to get that clarified right here, right now, that it was fully discussed in committee and why we did it, and it was a logical decision, and thank you very much.
Got it.
Thanks, Frank.
I'll take care of it.
Stop smirking, everybody. Is there a motion on the second or any of the questions?
Trustee Dodge.
Trustee Ruzich?
I move to recommend waiving the bid process, and I recommend approving the purchase of the upgrade of Village Network core switching equipment from Sentinel Technologies of Downers Grove, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $100,195 plus a 5% contingency.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you, Frank.
Development Services, approval of minutes.
Is there a motion?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adoption of 2017 NEC Electrical Code.
So we got lots of code items tonight.
We do. This is
our
the year of the
night.
code, if you will
It's the
remember.
time of the code.
So we'll have, as in the coming months, we'll have many more codes that you'll be reviewing and adopting as well. Because as you know, they get reviewed and updated every 3 years. So the first one we have up here on the agenda today is for the 2017 NEC Electrical Code. So we're recommending adoption of that tonight.
Is there any questions? Go. Is there a motion?
Trustee, Chairman Ruzich?
She's
Whatever.
both, actually.
Whatever.
You okay tonight, Ken? Or
Whatever.
is this another whatever?
No, I babysat all day.
Trustee Fenton.
Tootie. Move to recommend to the board to approve the local revisions of Title V, Chapter 3 of the Village Code and to implement the latest revisions to the 2017 National Electrical Code, NEC, approved by the American National Standard on April 25, 2017, as written by the NFPA 70.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adoption of the FDA Health Code and Village Amendments.
Madam Chair, we go off of the Illinois Department of Public Health code requirements, and they follow the FDA code set by the federal government. So we are requesting approval of the 2017 adoption FDA Health Code. One of the changes that is reflected in the revisions from previous years is they've changed the way they score
Yeah.
restaurants, their health inspections. It used to be more numeric, scoring system. Now it's simply a pass-fail. So that's one of the things that's reflected here in this particular code, and that's set by the FDA. If you have any detailed questions, I have Mr. Coleman here to answer those, because he knows this code better than I do.
Kind of makes sense. It's less subjective. It's just pass-fail versus.
Yeah,
giving
and
somebody a 7,
sometimes
8, or
there are
9.
certain fail things that if they fail one thing, that's a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't kind of skirt the rankings of a on-site health inspection, by playing with the numbers.
Any questions?
So in other words, this isn't lenient compared to what we had before.
No, the code is very similar to the previous codes. It's just the way that we have to go out, and when we go, we do like the big restaurants we do 3 times a year, and we have to make sure that we're scoring them consistently. So now it's going to be pass or fail. There's no numeric rating for each one of them.
Just, okay, I guess that, they're either doing something per code or they're not, right? It's getting that
Yes.
simple?
And so, yes, and sometimes there's big items that they're gonna fail on, and those categories are set by the code. And if they fail on those things, they have certain things they have to do immediately in order to get re-inspected, or if they don't, then they'll be shut down.
I can expand on that too, if you'd like.
Yeah, and I can't help but liken this back to, you could take a class for a grade, you could take a class for pass-fail, and
You
a
do
D
little to nothing.
is a pass. So I just want to help me get over that mental block I have.
Basically, what it comes down to is that the reinspection is based on the type and the severity of the violation. So there's 3 types of violations that will be out there based on this new code. A priority violation, priority foundation violation, and good practices. Priority violation is the most expansive, the most prudent. It's directly contribute to a foodborne illness,
So in other words, mice running around would be a boo-boo?
cross-contamination, things of that nature. The priority foundation violation is violating a step to prevent that foodborne illness, as in a procedure within the restaurant itself, such as having policies to exclude sick employees. When they come in sick, you don't tell them, there's no policy to tell them to go home. And then the good practices, the violations do not contribute to a foodborne illness, such as dirty floors, dirty counters, so forth. They will fail if they cannot remedy that violation right there on the spot. That's how they fail. So they can't, before that health inspector leaves, can't eliminate the problem, correct the problem. They fail and they are shut down.
In the third category, Mike, are you talking about in that last category?
So the dirty
Good
counter
pra-
example.
The dirty counter, they can remedy real quick, just a matter of washing the
Okay.
counter down. It's a good practice. It's
Okay.
the least severe violation. So in order for you to go ahead and actually be shut down, it's got to be an eminent health hazard. We just had one where they actually had the sewer back up. That was one immediately where we had to go ahead
That's
and shut them down, and then they went ahead and cleaned up. We went ahead and disinfected everything, and then we got them reopened immediately. That is an eminent danger. So there's 3 priorities.
So, and just a comparison from the way we used to previously do, we would go out and do the health inspection, we have a sheet, we go out there and they get scored on those things. So someone could hypothetically, under the previous code, they could score like an 85. They could have scored an 80, but they still had critical violations there that didn't necessarily dictate that the facility had to be shut down or rectified immediately. And that's what the FDA is trying to do. You can score an 85 and you can still, 85 may look good on paper, but you look at the details of that report and you see there are things there that should not have been allowed to happen. So that's what the federal government's
the
trying
change,
to
right?
address.
That's the
Right.
change. There's 3 different tiers,
Yeah.
so to speak? Okay, got it. We have a motion, a second, right?
You have any? No.
Make a motion. We need
Madam
a
Chair?
motion. Trustee Dodge.
Move to recommend to the village board approval of local revisions of Title VI, Chapter 1, Orland Park Building Code, and implement 2017 Food Code as written by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The Village of Orland Park's amendments and deletions as part of the Orland Park Village Code.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Orland Park Nature Center Upland Design Additional Services, number 4.
Madam Chair, we're asking for an addendum to the existing upland contract for an amount not to exceed an additional $10,000. This is to close out that project in the spring. It's almost completed now. There are some additional paperwork and some additional punch list items that need to be done in the spring. Uplands, as you'll remember, is the one who's overseeing that construction and overseeing the work of the general contractor. So there's money in the contingency to pay for this. So we're not asking for additional funds. We're just asking for a portion of that to be allocated to uplands.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I just want to make a comment before I make the motion. When the snow is gone and you get a chance, you need to get out there. It has turned out absolutely beautiful. The way everything, with all the paver bricks, with all the overlooks and everything that they put out by the pond and everything. It turned out to be a beautiful project. They did a great job.
Great.
With that, Madam Chair,
Trustee Fenton.
move to recommend to the village board to authorize extra work authorization number 4 not to exceed $10,000 for additional upland design ink work, including but not limited to site visits, report, punch list preparation, project coordination, vendor contract, and review of contractor pay application and project closeout as needed per village staff direction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
16242 107th Avenue, 6B renewal.
Madam Chair, this is a renewal of an existing Class 6B that's the incentive offered through Cook County. This is for the property located in our industrial park, and it's also for the Ambassador Car Carriers business.
Pretty straightforward,
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Dodge.
Move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a resolution supporting a renewal Class 6B property tax incentive status pursuant to Cook County Real Property Classification Ordinance for certain real estate located at 16242 107th Avenue, Orland Park, PIN 2720207003.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
SB Friedman Development Advisors proposal.
Madam Chair, tonight we're asking to do an addendum to the existing contract for SB Freeman. As the board is aware of, they've been helping us with they helped us with the selection of the developer for the triangle. Now we're moving into the negotiation phases of the master development agreement, and we like to keep them as part of the team. So we're asking to add an additional $25,000 to that.
And that should get us through, hopefully.
It should get us to the negotiations.
Through the
Yep.
negotiation. Yeah, I think they've been an
Good to
excellent.
work with, yeah.
Yeah.
We really have. They're gonna be here
really-
tonight as
yeah,
well.
they're-
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to move this?
Any questions?
Sure.
No, no
Okay.
questions.
Madam Chair?
Motion. Trustee Penn.
Move to recommend to the village board to approve the additional $25,000 to SB Friedman Development Advisors contract for their assistance in evaluating the downtown Main Street Triangle Master Development Agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hay and Associates Incorporated Plan Review and Landscape Architect Services 2019 contract adjustment.
So, Madam Chair, as you know, we have Hay & Associates as our landscape contractor consultant for the village for the next 3 years. We are recommending an addendum, an adjustment to their contract to increase it by an additional $5,000. That money is actually going to be coming from the Parks Department. It'll be a transfer over to allow us to do a landscaping plan for the entire Village Hall campus incorporated into their overall contract. So that's what the additional $5,000 is for, and that money's already in the budget.
Any questions?
No, Madam Chair, pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Move to recommend to the Village Board to approve an adjustment to the 2019 contract with Hay & Associates, Inc. for landscape plan review and landscape architect services from $40,000 to an amount not to exceed $45,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Land Development Code Amendments 1.
So, Madam Chair, there seems like this is kind of a big item. As you know, every single year we do land development code amendments, usually 1 or 2. Last year, I think we ended up doing 3. These are things that we come to the attention of either staff because we are reviewing the codes, or someone brings it to our attention, like a trustee, or someone from within our community who says, hey, we have an issue with this, can you look at it? So this is the first one to come through for 2019. There are a lot of technical or clarifications in the code, but those really are what we're going to focus on tonight. But there are a few that we just want to point out real quickly for you. The first one that you guys are going to remember is going to be the solar panel installation that in the last year, I think you've reviewed 6 or 7 of these that have come through. The previous code required them to go through the whole public hearing process, and that seemed to be a little bit strenuous for what they're proposing to do. So we told you previously we're going to go through for the code change. So that's included in the consideration for tonight as well. The other one is basically we did make a change to motor vehicle cells to allow that to be in core with a special use as well. Which is currently we do not allow, but we're changing the code to allow that. As you know, we've had a lot of redevelopment on 159th Street, all positive things in the last 2 years, but this provides opportunities for additional expansion if needed in the adjacent zoning district. The rest of the stuff is pretty residential care homes. We received notice last year from our attorneys that maybe our code was maybe unconstitutional. That's never a good thing. So we wanted to make those changes to that to make sure we didn't treat residential group homes any different than we do anyone else who lives in our neighborhoods. So those changes have been modified as well. And then there's been some clarifications and minor tweaks to the signage code as well. But if you have any specific questions, I'm here. We have Krashid here as well to answer any questions, but those are the highlights of the proposed codes.
Madam Chair, just a question on the solar piece, right? So, thank you. Why not make it easier? But, you know, Madam Chair, I mean, remember I had a sidebar conversation with Clerk Mahalik about just broadly what's going on in that industry and making sure it's right. So, there's nothing in the code, I think, or you guys tell me, where somebody very well might oversize the installation they're putting on parts of the roof that don't necessarily get a lot of sun. So, I mean, where's the quality control on what contractors are proposing? Is that anything we want to be involved in or do?
I'm going to defer to Mike.
John, yeah,
We spoke about it. I mean, there's so much money out there for these developers to access by knocking on doors. There is, I've gone on inspections with people. Mike and I have talked about this in other villages, and there's solar that shouldn't be put on. I don't know what our role becomes outside of awareness for our residents, that there are developers out there trying to sell solar that they shouldn't be trying to sell. I don't know if you have.
yeah, that may not be a line we want to cross. So.
It's a fine line what we review. I look at it from a structural standpoint, if it can actually support it. I also look at where did they do place them. And I look at where they place these solar panels. Is it going to be obstructive to the fire districts to put out a fire or do anything of that nature? Are they going to be all over the roof where they can't get up there? In terms of putting them on north elevations, if I see a house that they're putting them only on the north elevation, I'm going to question it. And I'm going to ask them, why are they doing this when the radiation or the solar does not even get to that point? And it might be just a matter of just they're trying to, like you said, sell it to them. They may not be familiar with it. We are very concerned about them putting any sort of conduit up on a roof. Anything that could possibly create any problems with penetrations in their exterior walls of their homes, things of that nature. So we're trying to come up with a code, and we're going to attend a seminar at the local IBEW school, the 4 inspectors, including myself, about this, to get familiar with it ourselves and get educated on it a little bit more. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question, but we do take a look at it, but there is not a code item on it. It just basically says what's good practices.
Yeah, and I don't, posing it as a question, maybe broadly as a policy, which is, do we put together any information so people kind of, buyer beware? There's only so far I think we want to go from a code or enforcement perspective on this one.
Madam Chair?
Trustee Penn.
Do we look at the contractors that they're, like if Mr. Smith comes to you and says, I'm going to have solar panels put in, and, Mr. Snuffleupagus' solar panel company is going to do it, do we look that up to see if they have any issues against them, or if they're really a bona fide company?
We just looked at their license of bonded. It's the same repeat ones that they often have, kind of like a history of the type of work that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at their license of bonded. We followed the same procedures as we would for any contractor, per se. So we do the field inspection out there, and we will talk to them if we do see that there's an issue. We'll talk to the homeowner and say, this is what we think is an issue. The first one we inspected, we seen that the way the conduit was bent was not professional in any ways in terms of the NEC code. So we addressed it. We didn't approve it, and they have to come back and address it. That's the best I can say right now. We're learning from it.
So the problem was with the contractor?
That's correct.
Trustee Ruzick, back here. I just wanted to add that the power that these solar panels generate, it's based on 1 year of power consumption for the past 12 months. So that's what is used by the contractor as a basis. We have not seen I would say about a dozen or so applications that has come through our office that they're over-generating the power. Because they also have to look at the credit that they're going to get from the local power company. That's an offset that they have to be careful about. And then the other part on that is the solar panel technology has moved far enough that if there's daylight outside, even if there's no sunlight, but there's daylight outside, these panels will generate power. So those are the two things that I could add. If there's any other questions, I would be happy to answer those.
I don't know that that's the concern. It's the irradiance, the amount of irradiance, and you get less, like Mike mentioned, on a north-facing roof. And the developers, and it's not a contractor issue, which is normally my concern, but it's a developer issue, And as long as I know in some of these other towns, the developer has to supervise an electrician. And I think that's something we need to be leery of, is to make sure that the contractor is the one that's pulling the permits, because the contractor is the one doing the work, not the developer.
That's correct. We do require an electrical permit application where any of the conduit that's bent and any of the disconnects or sub-panels are all put in by a licensed electrician.
So, just so I'm clear, if it's above a certain size, it's still going to have to come through for review? Okay.
That size is measured by the power, given how radically different the individual panels are.
The size we have said is 500 square foot. Right now, we're noticing somewhere.
No, what I mean is the power throw-off, because you can pick the level of wattage you're going to get off a given panel.
It will depend on the square footage, not individual panels. So you can add more square footage to get more power out of it. That's one thing that certainly can done.
Okay. All right, well, I don't want to go, it's a new area, so let's just make sure we can do everything we can so people are protected is what I was after.
Yeah, and we do think we'll continue to see this. Well, we saw a bunch of them towards the end of the year because there was a tax incentive that was expiring. So that was why we saw a bunch of them come through. But we still follow, the permitting, the licensing, the bonding, the on-site inspections. If it's over a certain size, you're still going to see it. But if it's not, then we're still doing an appearance review and following all those steps. The only difference is they're not triggering a public hearing.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
think the verdict is out on these for now. I mean, we haven't had a lot of data probably yet,
Right.
so I'm sure we'll be taking this up again. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair?
Trustee Dodge.
Move to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of the 2019 Land Development Code amendments as recommended on the January 8th, 2019 Plan Commission meeting is fully referenced below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Construction type 3B for R2 multifamily buildings?
So, Madam Chair, last month we were before you, I think it was last month, it might have been November. Okay, thank you, November, where we introduced this item that had come up as we have been working with developers and builders in Orland Park about our building code requirements for our multifamily buildings. We did a brief introduction to the committee. Mike did that. And then you directed us to go back and have some additional conversations with the fire districts as well. So in the last 2 months, we've done that. There's a bunch of attachments included on your iPad. There's a presentation that actually Mike put together in a PowerPoint that we also gave to you as well to kind of walk you through the very same things that we were able to walk the fire districts through. You do have in your agenda 2 letters of support for the proposed change. One's from the Orland Fire Protection District, which we appreciate them being here tonight. So you can hear directly from them and ask them any questions. And we also then received one from Okina's Fire Protection District as well. I am not a building code expert. That's Mike Coleman's job. So I'm going to hand it off to him. And I'm going to let him again remind you of what the limited change in the proposed code amendment would be. And then we also have David Sossin here tonight, who represents the Home Builders Association as well.
Madam Chair, I'm assuming that Kerry wants me to keep this very brief.
Yes.
So I will try and go ahead and be very brief. It's hard for an architect to do that, but I met with,
Could be an IT guy.
yeah. Well, Frank wants me to be quick too, so.
Yeah.
So does Jen.
I presented my PowerPoint to I requested all 3 fire districts to be present, and the Mokina and Orland Fire Protection District did attend, and I had a PowerPoint presentation to both of them. Basically, what we're looking to do is create the possibility where we can introduce some wood construction into our multifamily R2 construction. Basically, what the model code definition is that it's a non-combustible materials and interior elements, could be any materials permitted by code. The only difference in our code is that we require masonry materials on the exterior walls. Give you a little bit of a village code history. We have local amendments that were established on July 19th of 2005 that requires you to have precast or engineered reinforced concrete. Construction that is completely outdated at present. Our exceptions with a full NFPA 813 sprinkler system, they allowed to use a open web steel joist with a 1-hour non-penetrative fire rated system. The interior walls are all steel, 1-hour rated. Vertical shafts, it's 3 stories or more. Elevators, HVAC shafts are all 2-hour rated. So everything is non-combustible. Going back to the value engineering of this, is that based on the tariffs that the U.S. government has put on steel mills, the increased cost is almost by 30%. So keep the 30% in your mind on this, and I'm going to give you a comparison of the cost that basically our village amendments require us to build a building that's out of type 2A, which is a fire-resistive, non-combustible building. That cost is $14,723,000, and that's based off the latest RS Means 2018 cost analysis book. If you take that same building of 100,000 square feet, 4-story, into a type 3A, which is what we are proposing, the cost is $12,705,000. That is a savings of 13.7% just on the cost from going to a steel floor system to a wood system of type 3B, or type 3A, I should say. It does not include the cost for the steel, the increase of the steel based on these government tariffs. I have done some community comparisons to show that we are falling in the same plane as these other communities that are of the same type of construction, same population, and so forth. Evanston, Plainfield, Chicago, Joliet, Downers Grove, Oak Lawn, Mokina, Arlington Heights, and Tinley Park all allow type 3 for R2. The only amendments are, of course, sprinklers, which we also have. Tinley Park requires your elevator and stairs to have masonry enclosures. We don't require that, they just have to be fire rated for 2 hours. So we are falling in the mainstream of the way construction is going if this were to pass forth. Now, we are not looking to increase our allowable areas. There's still going to be the same restrictive allowable areas. What we are looking to do is that if you basically take a look at a dwelling unit, let's take a shoebox, for instance. The 4 walls of that shoebox is going to be not fire-rated, non-combustible construction. The floor, ceiling construction that'll separate the dwelling units will be of wood trusses. The partitions inside the dwelling units, separating toilet rooms, kitchens, bedrooms, closets, will be wood construction. Those are the savings that allow us to bring those costs down. Basically, the dwelling unit is completely encapsulated with fire-rated construction. From the walls that separate your corridors, stairwells, shafts, exterior walls, and the walls separating your dwelling units are going to be fire-rated, non-combustible construction. The wood trusses will be your separation, but we will be increasing from a 1-hour fire-rated wood floor system to a 1.5-hour system. The good thing about it is we require that the UL design that is published by Underwriters Laboratories, UL Design 582, allows you to get a 1.5 hour with wood, provided that the entire depth of that joist is filled with an insulation. That insulation serves 2 purposes. Purpose number 1, which is the most important for the fire department and for us, is that it creates a fire stop. It creates the draft stopping so fire does not spread. Second most important thing is it provides a great acoustic increase between the dwelling units, mainly for impact. All your penetrations that go into that floor system will be what they call ceiling radiation dampers, where if it detects heat or smoke, they close down. We're going to have special inspections that will be required for any penetrations, and what's the most critical thing is the demising walls between these dwelling units. The way that they would have to be supported, the gypsum board will run through the entire depth of the truss, and therefore creating an entire encapsulated, fire-protected, fire membrane-protected dwelling unit. The doors will still be rated. The only change that we would have is we are increasing the hourly rating of the floor system to a 1.5 hour, and that's what I presented to the fire district with this PowerPoint, and that will allow us to go ahead and create this hybrid. So it's basically they would have to call out that the building would be a fire resistive, it'll be a type 3A building with wood floors, and the partitions within the dwelling unit would be wood. But everything around, non-combustible steel, fire protected. Fully sprinkler system. If you don't want a sprinkler system, you don't get this hybrid design.
Madam Chair?
Trustee Fenton.
So, and this may be overstretching here, but because I've been such a stickler about building construction stuff, it almost sounds like it's going to burn faster, but it's going to just stay self-contained within the unit.
With a sprinkler system, I would say that the fire is going to be put out probably within 2 minutes. I don't think it will not burn quicker because the gypsum board and that insulation is going to protect the truss itself. So it's not going to burn quicker. It'll burn inside, but that sprinkler system will put that fire out quick. And the wood, to a certain extent, holds up burning a little bit better. So the trusses, the way they're designed, the way it's stipulated within that UL design is that it's designed that the wood would sustain the fire much better. If you take a solid beam, that's say a 10 by 12, and you burn it, it's going to last longer than a thin piece of steel that's going to expand with the heat and then pull the walls in. And I think the fire district will contest to that because we've had those discussions many times. So in my opinion, I think it's a safer structure. And I, in the private sector, have designed buildings like this, and in all of these communities I've listed before, so I'm pretty positive it's a very safe structure with sprinklers.
What happens if there's a hiccup in the sprinkler system? I'm just going worst case scenario, just because there was a recent fire a couple blocks from my house, so. There again, that was single family.
I would say that that building might hold up a little bit better than the steel building, because once it gets past the gypsum board, those steel studs are 26 gauge and you can bend them with your hand, and they'll just bend.
Can I ask the fire department?
Sure. But
Chief
I
Schofield?
wanted, I just wanted to clarify something. Mike, when you say the fire rating is increasing, that's a good thing.
That's a
From 1
good
hour
thing.
to 1.5 hours.
That is
Okay,
correct.
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
And before
I
we
just
get
wanted to
there,
clarify.
is that because of the insulation to stop the drafts, or is the wood treated in such a way? Where's that's a,
Where's the
what, a
extra half
50%
hour?
increase?
That's in the
fire rating?
insulation.
Where's it come from?
That's in the insulation, because
The insulation itself,
It's a blown wall.
as well as stopping drafts.
That's correct. That's correct. So when you encapsulate the entire truss, it's kind of protected. It's almost like creating a coat around the truss itself.
And then, that obviously sounds like specialized insulation versus the normal stuff you blow in between
Your attic.
floors just for sound deadening, correct?
It's the same product, actually. It just entirely encompasses the entire depth of the truss itself, including in between the webs of the open truss.
So it's coming all the way up to where the floorboard's
That's
going to
correct.
meet?
All the way up to the underside of the plywood floor deck, yes.
So, Chief Schofield, do you have any comments on this? Oh, well, okay.
You want to come up again so we can get on the microphone?
I think what Mike is saying is absolutely true. Everybody thinks that steel is better than wood, when in fact it tends to fail quicker under direct fire load. Now, in the event between the encapsulation of the wood trusses with the insulation, we feel that protects that from collapse, from direct flame contact. And then the big thing is the additional sprinkler protection that they're going to put in. So instead of a lesser system that wouldn't protect every room, as what's called a NFPA 13R system, is for residential. So you don't sprinkle closets, you don't sprinkle bathrooms and things like this. The system that was proposed is going to sprinkle everything. So the quicker we can get the water on it and there's more heads, it'll put the fire out quicker. If the sprinkler system is gone, the failure of that building will be the same if it were a steel or whatever. So it's going to fail if the sprinkler system isn't there. But we do get there quick, so it's we can certainly help prevent that. But I think the big thing is having the sprinkler protection there. So it was a fair trade-off to put that system in and to put those additional protections in around those trusses themselves.
So you're comfortable with it?
We're very comfortable with it.
And then, so I'm going to play out a hypothetical because this happens. I generally am deeply skeptical of making changes like this based on pure economics because these conditions will change just as early as they arrived. What happens when we settle our trade disputes with the balance of the people on this planet, for example, and the cost differential goes away? What then?
Well, the tariffs were not included in that example that Mike gave you. So the number.
Hang on. If I'm reading this right, and I'm generally pretty good with the English language, because of the tariffs, the mill started charging more then you basically say that you're not factoring in those costs on the charges. You can't have the variable on the same, both sides of the equation.
No, what we said is put aside the whole issue, the current issue of the tariffs. If you even just forget that there's this tariff issue going on within the country, the fact is that even if that didn't happen, there's still a 13.7 cost differential between types of construction. So we wanted to make you aware of that. We've heard that there's concerns about these tariffs, but really when we did this analysis, we set that off to the side. We felt it was important for you to know that because that's the feedback we were getting from our builders. But when Mike ran this analysis and he took a look at types of construction, it did not include the tariff. It was simply a type of a construction comparison based on the 2018 regular cost of construction, not including tariffs, and it came to this differential of the 13.7 that's in the staff memo. That does not include the tariffs.
Help me make the jump, because the argument is light gauge steel stud partitions, and we're largely talking about floor construction.
Yes. Yes, we're talking about floor construction and the interior partitions within the dwelling unit. That would be combustible.
If you guys think that broadly, if staff in the fire district thinks that the fire science is such that, you've increased the net ratings and you've solved for the life safety issues, I don't really have a strong opinion on this one. I just am, part of this feels like an economic argument, and I'm always really careful about those when you're talking life safety.
Right, and I think the significant point of this conversation tonight is just what you just said, Trustee Dodge, is if it was just simply about a builder saving money and it wasn't going to result in an increase in safety ratings of that building, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight. But the fact of the matter is not only can we increase the safety rating of the building, but we can also do it at the same time we're reducing the cost of construction. Well, that's a win-win for both sides. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. If we weren't going to be able to figure out ways to use building construction types and methodologies to do that, we wouldn't be recommending this tonight.
I'm glad to hear the fire departments are comfortable with it. That was one of my big issues when we first talked about it.
Right.
Yeah, but our code is actually more restrictive than the model code already. So, I mean, we have increased fire ratings. Yes, even the model code, if you pull out the model IBC code, they don't have to fire rate most of this. And we require
That's
it.
scary, actually.
Yes, it is. I mean, but you go to places like Arizona, they're building 6-story wood frame buildings, and where we are much more restrictive.
That's a good thing.
To me, it just seems like this is a situation where the industry has worked a problem and come up with a solution which basically saves them, some cash, but also increases the fire safety. Which is what I care about. I mean, I don't really care about saving, construction companies money, but if it's, there's no reason to have them spend more to get a less safe building. Right. That makes no sense in anyone's mind. So for that reason, I'm in favor of it. What's the next step, Carrie? Does this have to go into code amendment?
Yeah, so the next step would be for Mike to go back and actually write this into the code.
Okay.
And then we would come back through committee. It's in the village code, it's not the land development code.
Right.
So it doesn't trigger a public hearing. And then we come back to you with the actual write-up, strikeouts, all the changes, just like we did for the land development code tonight. And then you would make your motion on that and go to the board.
So next month? Is that what
Yeah,
you're looking at?
I think so.
Madam Chair, I appreciate you guys being as thorough and diligent and thorough as you have. So it's encouraging to see the folks that are going to have to deal with it when all hell breaks loose are okay with us.
Yep. And thank you to the fire district for it.
Yep.
Yes,
appreciate
I would
it.
like to thank the fire district too for providing the support
got a
and
call.
taking the time and listening to us.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good.
Yep.
Phase 1 design engineering for multi-use path along 167th Street.
Madam Chair, this actually project was budgeted in the capital budget for 2019.
Somewhat, yeah.
So we are proposing to hire V3 consultants to do the Phase 1 design engineering for this very complicated but very long pedestrian connection off of Wolf Road. We did apply for grant funding last year, and we asked V3 to help us with that. They put together some preliminary documents. They helped us prepare the grant. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant. One of the reasons we didn't get the grant was because we didn't have the Phase 1 design engineering done, which is why we requested it as part of the CIP for this year. Because usually, in order to get that type of grant funding, you have to have this legwork done ahead of time. So this will allow us to do that legwork, and then once we have this done, we will then go back in and apply for additional grant funding.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Dodge.
Move to recommend to the village board to approve the contract for V3 companies to complete preliminary engineering for the 167th Street multi-use path from Wolf Road to 104th, an amount of $211,000, and authorize the village manager to execute the contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public Works, approval of minutes?
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Public Works of December 17, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Maintenance and upgrade of Harlem Avenue streetlights?
John?
No, let's.
Madam Chair, V3 was previously awarded the contract to do the engineering for the upgrade of the Harlem Avenue streetlights, which included the replacement of the underground wiring, new controller cabinets, and the addition of lighted street signs. Since their award, we have just implemented the changeover to LED lighting. So this proposal is just to add the LED lighting to the conversion or the upgrades that we're going to be doing on Harlem Avenue.
Is there any questions or comments about this? Trustee Dodge?
Move to recommend to the village board to approve an increase in the scope of work for the maintenance and upgrade of Harlem Avenue Street lights, from 151st Street to 159th Street, including underground wiring and controller replacement and the addition of holiday lighting circuits with V3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Disposal of village equipment?
Madam Chair,
Trustee Ruzick?
I move to recommend to the village board to pass an ordinance entitled Ordinance Authorizing Disposal by Public Auction of Personal Property Owned by the Village of Orland Park, Illinois.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Sportsplex indoor soccer field replacement?
John?
The indoor soccer field at the Sportsplex is original to the facility, which was opened in 2003. The typical lifespan of the soccer field is about 10 years, so we've well exceeded that, and we're starting to see failures. We worked with the Recreation Department to explore what options we have. The Recreation Department did a great job in identifying the two vendors that are best suited to do this type of work. There was previously a third vendor. They've subsequently gone out of business. The recommendation that we're making is for the lower priced vendor, though we do have a budget for the higher price as well. The Recreation Department spoke with the Orland Soccer Club, which is one of the main users of the facility, and they preferred the vendor that is selected. I would also like to add that since we are under budget, I hope to come back to you next month to repurpose those funds to do some additional work at the Sportsplex, which would include some lighting upgrades.
Got it.
Any questions or comments about this item?
No. Madam Chair.
Trustee Dodge?
Move to recommend to the village board to accept the Sourcewell proposal for a Sportsplex indoor soccer field turf replacement from Field Turf USA, Inc. of Calhoun, Georgia, amount not to exceed $115,803.37.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Annual traffic signal maintenance?
John?
Every year, we're required to approve a contract for the maintenance of the traffic signals for both IDOT streets, county streets, and village streets. IDOT currently just extended their contract with Nec Electric to do the maintenance on their traffic signals. We piggyback that. Nec Electric gave us a proposal this year not to increase any pricing. There was a slight increase last year, so this is a one-year contract with no price increases from 2018.
Any comments or questions about the lighting?
Hence the no bid.
Yes. Hence the no bid. Trustee Dodge?
Madam Chair, I move to recommend to the village board to approve the 2019 expenditures of the state of Illinois for traffic signal maintenance on shared state roadways, and recommend approving 2019 expenditures to the Cook County Highway Department for traffic signal maintenance on shared county roadways, and to recommend approval of waiving the bid process for village traffic maintenance service, and Recommend accept the proposal from Nec Electric Company of McCook, Illinois for traffic signal maintenance for the 13 village-owned traffic signals at a cost not to exceed board-approved budget amount for 2019.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Elevated Tank 5 fiber duct extension.
Greeley and Hansen is the engineering firm that is currently doing the engineering for the new Spur 2, which is the extension of the Oak Lawn improvement. It's a new water main feed from 151st Street to our main pump station. That route is also ends up being very close to Tower 5. We saw an opportunity to install a new fiber duct along that same route, taking advantage of the contractor doing the work when it's installed. So this is the engineering to accomplish that.
Are there any questions? Trustee Ruzick?
Madam Chair, I move to recommend to the village board to accept the proposal from Greeley and Hansen of Chicago, Illinois for the elevated tank 5 fiber duct extension at a cost not to exceed $39,500.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Census water meter related products purchase.
A number of years ago, the decision was made to move to census water meters. The local vendor for census water meters is Core & Main. There are no opportunities to purchase from any other vendors because they are the regional supplier. So we're just requesting permission to utilize and purchase the water meters from Core & Main. Also included in this is the final year for our upgrade of our SmartPoint transmitters. We started that project in 2013, and we're almost done with switching over to SmartPoints.
Are there any questions? Comments?
Nope. How many more years until all the meters are replaced, or is this it?
This is for the transmitters only. And
Oh, this is for the transformers.
the transmitters only, yeah. So we started in 2013. This year will be the final year, so we'll
Okay.
have all the transmitters completed.
And, you know, both, I guess maybe for John and Frank, just, can you remind everybody, and we'll get it into the record, of, you know, why we started this journey and what else we're doing? It's saving costs, getting us more insights, better predictive analytics on the maintenance, et cetera.
The SmartPoint transmitters are the next generation. They're the smart meter. They allow us to communicate back and forth with the water meter. So
As opposed to going to the meter.
correct. So now we do not need to have a water meter reader go out and physically read the meter, so we can get away from the drive-by. So everything is being read now from a fixed point. So the water billing is able to essentially automatically read all the water meters in the village in a matter of hours instead of a matter of days.
And eventually you'll be able to add hooks into that to allow the residents to see real-time water usage if they wanted to. So we would purchase the application to allow them to do that.
Yeah, the next piece of this, our water meters are currently reaching the end of their typical life. We are testing the water meters to make sure that they're reading accurately, but once we do a conversion to the iPro meters, which is also a census product, that would provide full automation and full availability of all the data that the water meter has. And as Director, or former Director, Florentine indicated, the next step would be to implement a public-facing portal, which would allow the residents to actually see what's going on with their water meter.
Been a long journey, so.
Is there a motion?
Trustee Fenton, I move to recommend to the village board to authorize the purchase of census water meter related products, including SmartPoint transmitters and water meters from Core & Main of Mokina, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed the board approved budgeted amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Second.
So you doing all right, brother?
Great, how are you? It is.